Coming in at number 5, we've got Aaron Layton. Authors tend to be a reclusive sort. So many tales exist detailing a storyteller's retreat to the wilderness to find peace so that they can pen their next great work. Someday, that'll be me, and you'll never hear from me again. But until then, I'll just look at others and their foolhardy demon dealings. See, being alone in the woods tends to also inspire people to look deep within and find out what they truly desire. Without the distractions of modern life, other people, and a strong Wi-Fi connection, folks have to face down plenty of hard truths. If these truths are difficult enough, or if their dreams are big enough, they might be tempted to strike up a deal with the demon. I'm not sure if Aaron Layton had actually done this or not, but his children's book seems to imply that he's an expert in this field. He wrote a book called A Children's Book of Demons, and inside are a bunch of fun and funky illustrations detailing demons the world over. Accompanying these illustrations is plenty of prose, encouraging children to be creative while dealing with their problems. It's kind of an edgy concept for a kid's book, but nothing too insane. However, it got lots of attention upon being published, drawing the ire of exorcists, religious leaders, and uptight parents everywhere. The book encourages readers to imagine demons, draw sigils, and attempt to use these strategies to assist them in their daily life, like a kid's Bible storybook, but more in line with Satanism. Most would look on and get a good chuckle out of this, but the previously mentioned folks condemned the tome, claiming that it would imbue the children with evil energies and ruin their lives. This leads me to assume two things. 1. Aaron Layton knows enough about demons and Satanism to write a book that will offend people, and in his studies might have summoned one or two. Maybe they helped him write it. And 2, some of the parents who ended up buying this book for their kids actually witnessed some demonic activity. Nobody would be getting so up in arms about something totally harmless, so there must be at least a little bit of power here. I wonder what the kids use their demons for. Maybe acing a spelling bee or getting extra helpings for dessert.
Next up at number 4, we have the bizarre story of Ronald Doe. Now, people claim that the story of Ronald Doe is the true inspiration for the classic horror film The Exorcist. The story begins in the late 1940s. Ronald, who was 13 years old at the time, was traumatized by the loss of his beloved aunt, Harriet. His aunt was a spiritualist who had a fascination with the occult, and she taught him many things, including how to properly use a Ouija board. You know where this is going, right? Hoping to contact his recently dead aunt, Ronald set about using the Ouija board to make contact with her. Well, someone else picked up the call. In early 1949, Ronald began to experience strange things. Scratching sounds coming from around the house, water dripping out of the walls, and then he witnessed his mattress flip over by itself. Scratches began to appear on the boy's body with the letter X, which led priests to believe that he'd been possessed by 10 demons. That's pretty unlucky. After months and months of grueling exorcisms, Ronald actually survived the ordeal after reportedly witnessing a vision of St. Michael defeating Satan's armies on a great battlefield. Good job.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Robert Johnson. A classic tale is that of the Faustian deal. Somebody wants something so bad that they're willing to give up their soul for it. Success in life, and then an eternity of servitude to a dark force in the afterlife. Worth it. Robert Johnson decided he wanted to be the ultimate blues guitarist and would give anything to make that happen. Some say that he sold his soul to the devil for the skills required. When he played, his talent was so impressive that much of his audience had no choice but to believe it was acquired through paranormal means. I'm sure that did a lot for his ego. Looking into this story, it's said that he met a devil at a crossroads and Satan tuned his guitar for him. Tenacious D who. The devil went on to teach Johnson how to master the blues, which was the prevalent guitar genre at the time, and from then on he was a genius on the fretboard. No one could keep up with him, and he impressed countless listeners. However, he was met with an unfortunate fate, which only served to intensify the rumors about his skill. At the young age of 27, he passed away with foul play suspected. By that time, though, he had produced 6 studio records and thrilled folks across America. If your legacy lives on for ages like his, is that a fair trade-off for an early death? We can't ask Johnson himself, but I'm sure he'd have a strong opinion on that one. Coming in at number 2, we've got Sid White. Originally interested in witchcraft, Sid gradually became aware of and enamored with demons. Believing that a demon is an entity that has wandered our earth for ages, possibly even for eternity, he has supposedly summoned demons on multiple occasions. The rituals remain largely the same across the board, but small changes can affect what demon you'll summon. Write this down. You'll need a dark room, candles, herbs, a Ouija board, and blood. All pretty easily attainable, don't you think? Especially that blood bit. You're full of it. From there, you need to know a specific spell or chant, especially if you're looking for a specific demon. Knowing what you're getting into is pretty important too, because if you're summoning demons willy-nilly, you're gonna have a bad time. A lot of people choose to summon demons to strengthen their connection with another world. This allows those who do so to draw increased strength and insight and hopefully improve their life some. However, Sid refuses to talk about what happens once he summons a demon. That's his private time, apparently. I mean, there are a lot of things people do behind closed doors that they probably don't want to discuss with the world at large. I pulled a lot of this info from an interesting article on Vice, and I'm sure Sid didn't want all the Vice readers to know his secrets. Check out the article if you want some more insight though. It'll be in the description. Coming in at number 1, we've got Niccolò Paganini, another masterful musician making morbid arrangements under cover of dark. Paganini was well known for being able to do things no other musicians could even dream of. As a child, he was a wunderkind, quickly picking up and becoming proficient in all sorts of different musical instruments. Being a child prodigy comes with a lot of pressure though, I'm sure. By the time he was a teenager, he was an alcoholic. However, he managed to overcome this, and in his early 20s, he became a well-regarded star, composing complicated and popular pieces of music and performing all over Europe. Some of the stuff he composed, nobody else could even attempt to play for years. He could play 3 octaves across 4 strings in one hand on the violin, and won a Stradivarius for sight reading a supposedly impossible piece. One of his most famous compositions was called Witch's Dance, which raised even more eyebrows. So maybe in his darkest hours of alcoholism, he reached out to a higher or lower power and asked for power beyond his wildest dreams. Either that, or he decided to get it together. He supposedly had really long fingers too, which may have helped with his incredible musicality. Striking up deals, looking for power, and wondering what might be on the other side. All good reasons to summon a demon, but also maybe not great reasons. But hey, it's your life.
Coming in at 5, the Smurls family. The Smurl haunting took place between the years of 1974 and 1989, and referred to claims made by Jack and Janet Smurl of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, who alleged that a demon was tormenting their home. Their first claims arrived in 74 when they alleged that their double-block home was disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors, threw their dog into a wall, shook their mattress, and pushed their children down some stairs. And on top of that, even physically and sexually assaulted Jack on multiple occasions. In 86, the family brought in our favorite demon fighting duo, Ed and Lorraine Warren. According to Ed, the demon that inhabited the Smurls' home was incredibly powerful and shook mirrors and furniture after they tried to persuade it to leave by playing religious music and praying. Temperatures would drop, and the Warrens even claimed to have seen a dark mass form in the home, with the demon once even leaving a message on a mirror telling them to get out. The home was blessed by several priests, with one unidentified priest performing 3 unsuccessful exorcisms. Janet Smurl claimed the demon avoided the rite during the exorcism by moving between the double-block home and following the family to other locations. Now, the source of the family's possession was never discovered, with many media outlets claiming they were frauds, simply looking for 15 minutes of fame, whereas others believe the family invited the demon in on their own accord. What do you guys think though?
Number 4, Charlie Charlie. Staying on the topic of children summoning demons for a moment, let's discuss this viral smash hit of a demon summoning trend. Remember when this was all anyone was talking about? Oh boy. Part Bloody Mary, part Ouija, and part internet challenge, Charlie Charlie took the Western world by storm. It kind of inspired its own miniature satanic panic as concerned parents and news organizations rushed to understand the appeal of the game. In fact, I bet it would have all blown over much more quickly if folks just calmed down a little. But kids and teens across the nation were playing this game and supposedly successfully summoning a demon. Charlie, if you couldn't tell. The game works like this. Set up a little 2x2 grid and a piece of paper, writing yes and no in each of the squares. Once this is ready, balance 2 pencils perpendicularly atop each other so that one can sort of spin freely. Now you're ready to play. Chant Charlie Charlie and ask some questions. Apparently if the top pencil moves, that means Charlie is present. Is he good? Is he bad? Who knows? But a lot of folks took advantage of this interesting stationary-based phenomenon and claimed that they had managed to summon real demons. After asking some particularly salacious questions, they got answers they didn't like and began freaking out. Did this really hurt anyone? It's questionable, but like I said before, it inspired a whole lot of new coverage and panic amongst the morally upright who believed that the kid would encourage their kids to take their paranormal investigations a step further. It's been a while since someone went viral for playing Charlie Charlie, and I can't say that I've seen any major new updates concerning folks who supposedly summon demons. So maybe it was a temporary visit, one without lasting effects, but who knows? Somebody test it out for me, alright? Let me know if Charlie's still kicking and what he offers in exchange for his soul.
Coming in at number 3, Arne Cheyenne Johnson. Arne Johnson is marked in history for being the very first person to plead innocent on account of demonic possession during a case that is infamously known as the Demon Murder Trial. On November 24th, 1981 in Brookfield, Connecticut, Arne Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter for killing his landlord Alan Bono. Now this is where things get odd. According to the testimony by the Glatzel family, 11-year-old David Glatzel had allegedly played host to the demon that forced Johnson to kill Bono. And after a number of tragic and terrifying events, the family enlisted our pals Ed and Lorraine Warren in a last-ditch effort to cure David of his demonic possession. The family, along with the Warrens, proceeded to have David exorcised by a number of different priests. It lasted several days, and according to eyewitnesses, the demon left the child's body and took up residence in Arne Johnson's instead. Now, of course, a claim like this would never hold up in court, with the judge ruling that such a defense could never be proven and was therefore infeasible in a court of law. Johnson was therefore convicted, though he only served 5 years of a 10 to 20 year sentence. Coming in at number 2, Michael Taylor. Michael Taylor is a man who became notable in England in 1974 for alleging that he was possessed by a demon. Taylor lived in West Yorkshire as a butcher, and with his wife belonged to a Christian fellowship group. However, Michael wasn't all good, with him often admitting that he felt evil within him, resulting in him attacking the leader of the fellowship, Marie Robinson, verbally. Taylor's behaviour increasingly became more erratic, and as a result, the local vicar called in other ministers experienced in deliverance in order to cast out the demons residing within the man. I mean, a little hasty. A lot of people have a temper, doesn't mean they're possessed. Anyway, the exorcism occurred on the 5th and 6th of October in 1974 at St. Thomas's Church in Gorba, and was headed by Father Peter Vincent. According to Bill Ellis, an authority in folklore and the occult, the exorcists believed that they had, I quote, in an all-night ceremony, invoked and cast out at least 40 demons, including those of incest, bestiality, blasphemy, and lewdness. At the end, exhausted, they allowed Taylor to go home, although they felt that at least 3 demons, insanity, murder, and violence, were still left in him. And they were right, because while at home, Michael Taylor murdered his wife Christine, attacking her with his bare hands before also attacking their dog. He was later found by police naked in the street, covered in blood. At his trial, Taylor was acquitted on the grounds of insanity and was sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 2 years. And finally, coming in at number 1, Gottliebendeitis. This scary demonic case takes us all the way back to the 1800s. Gottliebendeitis was a 28-year-old resident of the rural German village of Mottlingen, located within the Black Forest. She was raised with Lutheran parents and had somewhat of an oppressively religious, highly superstitious upbringing. However, when her parents died, Deitis lived with her siblings and continued to attend service. But it was the people living nearby the Deitis home that began to notice strange noises emanating from the home during the dark hours of the night. Noises which sounded violent in nature. Of course, many people suspected abuse was going on inside the house, so people decided to investigate. According to reports, they saw things that they couldn't explain. Furniture moving on its own accord, strange thuds, scrapes, and bangs that seemed to be coming from inside the walls, leading them to believe that something paranormal was occurring within the home. Deitis began to claim that at night she was being visited by the apparition of a woman holding a baby in her arms, and she was prone to having sudden blackouts, on one occasion going into an unresponsive trance-like state for an entire day, before snapping out of it with no memory of what happened. Gottlieben was ultimately sent away to live with her cousin, and of course the hauntings followed her to the new home, leaving the other siblings in peace. A reverend was called in, who determined that she was in fact possessed by a demon, after witnessing evidence such as fits, speaking in tongues, and intense bouts of cursing and profanity. Gottlieben even claimed that when she was younger, evil spirits had tried to kidnap her, but were driven away by the power of her mother's protective prayers. The Reverend began the ritual of exorcism, which caused an escalation in the strange phenomena surrounding the girl. She became more violent, needing to be restrained at all times. She even exhibited horrifying vomiting, which included glass nails and blood. The exhausting exorcism dragged on for 2 years, with the Reverend ultimately coming out on top, and with Gottlieben supposedly stating, "Jesus is victor."
Coming in at number 5, we have the sinister story of Clara Germana Selle. In 1906, Clara was a student at St. Michael's Mission in South Africa. She was reportedly an orphan of African origin, but had been baptized as an infant, and at just 16 years old, Clara made a pact with Satan. She later went on to reveal what she'd done to the overseeing priest, Father Horner Erasmus, but in an account written by a nun, it was already too late. Clara was reported to be able to speak in languages that she had no previous knowledge of. Witnesses reported that she could speak and understand Polish, German, French, and any other language that they could throw at her. It was also reported that she had become clairvoyant, revealing many of her neighbours' most intimate of secrets. On top of this, she had seemed to have gained an extraordinary strength and a violent temper. She threw nuns around the room as if they were dolls, and it was reported that her screams resembled a savage beast, with one nun reporting that they sounded like a hellish choir. Well, the priest soon stepped in, and Father Erasmus performed an exorcism on Clara. It lasted an incredible 2 days, and at the pinnacle of the ritual, Clara was reported to knock the Bible from the priest's hand and attempt to choke him with his own shawl.
Coming in at 4, Julia. Back in 2008, a case was documented by Dr. Richard E. Gallagher, a psychiatrist in New York who describes one particular patient that we will refer to as Julia, who he deemed to be possessed by a demon. She was a middle-aged woman who wore flowing dark clothes and was incredibly charming. However, she was also part of a satanic cult. The woman referred to herself as the queen of the cult, but as I stated before, Gallagher simply referred to her as Julia, a pseudonym he gave her. Julia had approached her local priest, convinced she was being tormented by a demon, and in turn was referred to an exorcist who reached out to Gallagher for a mental health evaluation. The question here though, and the question Gallagher wanted answering, was why a devil worshipper would want to be free of the devil. Right? Gallagher helped assemble an exorcism team, and the group gathered in the chapel of the home. Reports state that the objects would fly off shelves around her. She even knew personal details about Gallagher's life, how his mother died and how many pets he had. Spookier still, even when Julia wasn't with Gallagher, she still found a way to reach out to him. On one particular occasion, Gallagher was talking on the phone with Julia's priest, when both men heard one of the demonic voices that came from Julia during her trance, even though she was nowhere near a phone and miles away. Gallagher went on to state that he had never been more afraid in his entire life.
Bringing us in at number 3, we have the tale of the Ammons family. Now, this story is pretty weird, but whatever the true outcome, it led to one of the strangest cases ever handled by the US Department of Child Services, and many of its events are detailed in an 800-page report. It happened. It's weird, let's jump in. In 2014, mother of 3, Latoya Ammons, claimed to police officials that her children had been possessed by demons, a pretty strong claim for anyone. But, well, when a social worker and a hospital nurse came to check on the children, they witnessed Latoya's 9-year-old son walking backwards up a wall. Now, that's not all. Latoya says that the strange tale began with flies. Wherever the children would be, there'd be a swarm of big, ugly flies that followed them. And despite constant cleaning and repellent, they were still there. They'd also witnessed her 12-year-old daughter levitating above her bed, unconscious. Seeking the aid of a priest, the children were reportedly violent and aggressive. They spoke in grave, beast-like tones, and the priest believed that the children had been taken into possession by a demon named Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. The police officer who had led the case publicly stated that it was the strangest, most unexplainable thing that he'd ever seen. No kidding. Next up at number 2, we have the story of Anna Eklund. Now, this insane story of demonic possession reportedly lasted over several decades and followed Anna through her teenage years and most of her adult life. Born in 1882 in the United States Midwest, Anna had exhibited demonic possession symptoms since the age of 14. Raised in a Catholic household, Anna began to show strange signs during her adolescent years. She developed a disgust for holy objects, and it was also reported that she had a physical inability to enter a church. It is thought by the time Anna was 26, she was fully possessed by at least 7 demons. During a 23-day-long exorcism, dozens of people witnessed Anna do some pretty insane stuff. While she was unconscious, strange voices would talk in unknown languages. She would often vomit tobacco leaves and foreign spices, and she would verbally assault the people present with sins that they had committed in their childhood. It is believed that Anna's first brush with the demonic arts came from her aunt Mina, who was a reputed local witch and would supposedly prepare Anna's food with strange herbs. The amount of records on Anna Eklund is insane, and her case is considered by paranormal scholars as the most abundantly documented case of possession in the 20th century. And finally, at number 1, we have the true story of Estefania Lazaro. Our number 1 spot is the real story that inspired the Netflix hit horror film Veronica. Have you guys seen it? Pretty good. Now, Estefania's brush with demons remains to be one of Spain's most mysterious unsolved criminal cases. According to her parents, Estefania had developed a slight interest in the occult, which gradually led the teenager to perform a seance at school with her friends. According to a witness, they were attempting to contact the boyfriend of one of the girls who had recently died in a motorcycle accident. And you guys guessed it, they used a Ouija board. What happened next was a series of unexplainable events that occurred over a 6-month stretch. Estefania would descend into a strange version of herself, often having wild seizures and visions, and she would snap into fits of violent rage, snarling and barking like a beast at her younger siblings. After months of torment, she mysteriously passed away in her bedroom. Her death was unexplained. Her parents later reported walking past her bedroom at night and seeing strange, evil-looking, shadowy people. And then, on the evening of November 27th, 1990, police received a frantic telephone call from the Lazaro household. Her parents reported tall shadow people that had entered their home, and they were terrified to go back inside. As police entered the house, they felt the same eerie presence that had plagued her parents. And as they entered Estefania's room, they found a crucifix laying on the middle of the floor and a poster that had been shredded by claws. They witnessed furniture quickly shifting across the room and doors rapidly slamming. And in the living room, on the floor, was a picture of Estefania that had fallen off the wall and ignited itself on fire, but only the photograph was burned. The frame, including the glass, didn't have a single scratch on it.